it's interesting to think sometimes, how much damage have people like Mike Adams, Alex Jones, and John Merkler, who are these, if you look at them from their page and you went to them without knowing who they were or what their what their agenda was, you'd think that these guys were scientists, and yet people like Jones and Mike Adams continually spout outright wrongful scientific information. They have people who come on to their show or website and write absolutely ridiculous non-scientific articles. Remember, Alex Jones is the guy and should be continually ridiculed for saying that they've got water that's turning the frogs gay. Now, it boggles the mind as to why these guys have become so popular. But if you think about it, it's not really... it is quite a simple answer. It's because they came to understand social media very, very quickly, very early on. Because what they do is they realise that posting all their, conspiracy nonsense is only going to attract, conspiracy theorists. What they do is exactly what David Wolf does, who every so often they'll post, Alex Jones of American Flag, share this if you're a patriot. So what happens? People share it, and then they end up liking the page, thinking that it's something that it's not. And then they see other things and they think, I'll just share that. And then they don't either read the articles, or people think that if it's, if it's sent from a friend to someone else, then they're more likely to read it and think that it's true because, hey, my friend thinks it's true, so maybe I should. And there's a lot of psychological elements that actually go into this when you look at it really deeply on the the effect of social media. But you've got to think of the impact, particularly when it comes to vaccines. You've seen continuously falling vaccine rates, particularly in America, and what has happened? Diseases and illnesses that have literally almost been wiped out and non-existent almost anymore have now come back. Why? Because people didn't vaccinate their kids, and as a result they've got ill, and people are convinced that these are experimental autism causing drugs, and it's mind-boggling. It really, really is. And you've only got to listen to Alex Jones like 2 weeks in a row, and every time he mentions something, just write it down. Me and my friend did this experiment way back in 2008. We wrote down for 2 weeks straight everything Alex Jones said, bullet point wise, and very often he'd have contradicting points that had said something that he'd said only yesterday or last week, or something had changed completely different. And you've only got to look at Jones now. This anti-government conspiracy theorist is now a pro-government conspiracy theorist. So go figure on that. But he'll only be pro-Trump, by the way, so as long as his audience is pro-Trump. The second his audience decide that to ditch Trump, he'll turn with them as well. He did this with the Bertha conspiracy as well. He did it with David Icke as well. He's a famous slave to his audience. So that's, covers Jones. But then we go on to Mike Adams, and Mike Adams is even more bizarre because Mike Adams has released his own PubMed journal site where basically he posts papers that agree, and big quotation marks, agree with him on what he is saying. Now, numerous times in the comments, I've had anti-vaxxers post me what they say, this proves that it causes autism, only to read it, and that's not even what the paper says. That's not even what the paper set out to do. It's not even what the paper proved anything. There was no link proven. And yet, this is somehow evidence. And not only that, he's also released, as part of that website, a scientific journal so that you can jargon bust the scientists. And it's absolutely horrific. It is absolutely horrific. Now, I always hold my hand up and say to this, I am not a scientist. The furthest I ever took my science, knowledge, shall we say, was to a GCSE level. But if someone like me, who is only at that level, can easily see that, hang on a second, that what he's saying is complete bullshit, then what does it say about the people who believe him, who have basically not even a basic understanding of science or even how it works, or when people tell them, no, you've got that wrong, instead they are so programmed by these types of people to go, you're a shill, or that information is wrong because it comes from the government, and you just like, it's unbelievable. It really, really is. In fact, I had someone yesterday in a Twitter conversation about the Gerson therapy, and I'm like, okay, well, that's a nice story you've posted, but it's only an anecdotal evidence piece. You've got to go with the science, and the science does not support any of the Gerson therapy and what it's saying. And as usual, I got the usual, oh, you're not an open-minded, I'm not going to waste my time on you, I'm leaving. And I'm like, hold on a second, all I did was I challenged your assertion that the Gerson therapy worked, and I gave you several reasons why the Gerson therapy doesn't work, so then they walked away. Because these people end up living in an echo chamber, and this is something a lot to blame social media on. So, where and how do you stop these people? Because once, these people get cocooned, and I've said it before, a lot of these conspiracy theorists are like flies that get stuck in a web. And, Jones and all these other quacks are like the spiders that just spin them up. And they can't escape because they cocoon themselves into this, echo chamber where if they start pulling at one thread that they have questions about, then all of a sudden their entire cocoon might fall to pieces. So best not, pull at the threads. So that's essentially where we are, and this will do harm to people. As I've already said, look at what's happening with vaccine rates, and we've had outbreaks of mumps, measles, and rubella, and other whooping cough outbreaks, things that literally never happened, and now are happening on a regular basis, and are doing harm and even killing children. But these people don't listen. They don't care because they're in their wonderful echo bubble, and when they get challenged, they run to these corners. And I've seen it. I've seen on the Gerson therapy Facebook page, I've seen someone who went on my YouTube comment section, said that they delivered me a sound beat down on the subject of the Gerson therapy, and I'm like, hold on a second. That video has been up for nearly 5 years now, and no one to this date has ever given me any evidence that the Gerson therapy has worked. Remember, I've read that guy's book, and it is nothing but nonsense. It's got no scientific evidence or value to it whatsoever. And I'm like, what's going on? Because these guys live in an echo chamber. And it all starts very, very simple and slowly with, these people liking and sharing you know, seemingly innocuous posts, but then once that comes, then come the conspiracy posts. And I've seen it recently with a friend who has now started sharing, you know, conspiracy posts. And, you know, and another example is Britain First. If you don't know who Britain First are, they're basically an idiot organisation who don't like Muslims, and they started their social media, you know, journey by basically sharing things like, you know, poppies should be worn on, you know, Remembrance Day, you know, things, innocuous shit like that people would just share, or, you know, support our vets. And people would share that, and then that increased their numbers on their page. And then they started sharing all the Islamic stuff, and it's just like people fall for it so very easily, and they don't realise that they're doing it half the time, which is the scary stuff. And yet these people claim continually that I'm the one that's brainwashed. But there you go.